Good morning, everybody. This is Rachel Jones, and I am a business insurance advisor with Newman and Tucker Insurance. I'm really excited today to have our guest, Josh Farty, available. Josh, could you give us a little bit about what you do and how you do it?
Yeah, so my name is Josh Farty. I do business development here at AI Software, and we build, rescue, and support the website and Google business profile for small to mid-sized businesses and also large corporations.
Okay. What typical businesses are you working with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so we have industrial, manufacturing, non-hospital medical, nonprofits, restaurants, coffee shops, etc.
Okay. We're going to hop into this, but I would invite our audience to put comments below so that way we can get to them and answer any questions that you might have as we go through. But Josh, what kind of inspired you to join in the website development? And it's kind of ever changing from my understanding and what I read. There's always something new and exciting popping up. So how do you keep up with it all and what got you interested?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty unique story, right? I just turned 29 in February, and for the first decade of my life, so for the first 10 years, my entire profession was centered around actually health and wellness.
Okay.
So I did things from personal training to group exercise instruction, online coaching. I actually own my own local CrossFit gym here for the last 7 years. The first, call it 10 years of my life was centered around that. And then I made a decision to close the doors to my gym in March of 2023. And when I did that, I was kind of like, wow, like what's next, right? Like what's going to be the next best thing that makes the most sense for me? And I actually connected with Dave Ebbesmeyer, who's one of the two owners here of our company, in a CrossFit gym.
Okay.
And I expressed that I was looking for a new role or a new job or a new career. And he was like, man, like, why don't you come do sales for me? And I was like, I know nothing about what you
Yeah.
do or how you do it, the offering, the service, etc. And he's like, doesn't matter. He's like, I'll hire character and train skill.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is
As you
history.
say.
Yeah.
So can you give us a little bit of history about what the business, like how the business got started and a little bit about them?
Yeah. So two best friends out of Sycamore High School.
Hmm.
They started the company 22 years ago. AI does actually not stand for artificial intelligence. Uh,
Okay.
it stands for application innovation.
Well,
Uh,
now you know what, they locked down that name ahead of time, so they just had some foresight going.
Yep, the joke is always, we're waiting for the person to come to us and want to purchase our domain for a pretty penny. So I don't know if they've gotten the offer that piques their interest just yet, but they're waiting on it.
Hmm. You know, what's funny is I actually work for two best friends that they've been friends since second grade, and they started their business about 30 years ago. So it's kind of fun to see those lifelong relationships and how they've made build an entire life and business together.
Yeah, and I think the business has evolved over those 22 years.
Mhm.
Obviously, technology has changed, and how the processes operate have changed along with it. So I think Dave and Ed, the other owner, have done a phenomenal job of kind of adjusting along the years to have a model that makes sense for the times.
Hmm. So let's talk about, you said digital diagnosis. What are some of the common website and Google profiles that you see businesses working with? You know, I know a lot of people will put up a pretty website and then expect people to come. And that's just not quite how it works. So can you explain to me like what you exactly do for folks?
Yeah, so a big thing now, especially in 2025, but it's been this way for several years now, is making constant changes, right?
Hmm.
So I think a lot of times businesses think, okay, well, if I just put something up there and it exists, that's
Yeah.
enough, right? So it's unfortunately not. So what these search engines want to see is they want to see steady organic activity within
Hmm.
that website and also the Google business profile. And what
Yeah.
that means is like changes, updates, removals, things happening and ebb and flowing to kind of show that, hey, like we're an active and relevant business.
Right. So what is the process when you start working with somebody? Like that you do an evaluation and give them how their website's performing, or what exactly does that process look like?
Yeah, so I would feel like this pertains more to like our rescue program, right? So if I encounter a prospect that already has an existing presence, so a website or Google business profile, we kind of hop on a call or we meet in person and we kind of decipher what their pain points are, right?
Mhm.
Like, what are the issues that they feel happen to be with their website or Google Business Profile? And we kind of dive deeper into that and discover what their wish list items are and how we can address that for them. And then also we'll probably point out maybe things that they don't see for themselves. And we can express, hey, like these are things to also consider that we can implement right away once we kind
Right.
of begin our relationship.
And I think that making sure that you have that Google website, I think that a lot of folks are scared about bad reviews because they know they can't get it off. And so if they have somebody who's upset, what happens in that case? But I think you have so many more chances for positive interaction and for it to be a good thing for your business. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our big thing that we market to our existing clients and also future prospects is our GAS program, right? So GAS stands for Google Algorithm Signaling.
Hmm.
And our main tagline is that we landscape your web presence. So the kind of the way we funnel it in is we say we're going to put gas in the mower, right?
Okay.
So what that means is that what our team is trying to do is signal Google with
Hmm.
organic tactics that it wants to see, right? So we're not trying to trick anything. We're not trying to goof the algorithms. We're trying to give Google the material and the information that it wants within that profile, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of times folks, what we consider, don't have a complete profile. And
Hmm.
what that means is there's many things within that Google business profile that can be implemented for free at no extra charge from Google that businesses can be utilizing to help service themselves from an organic visibility or reach perspective. So what that means is you start off with your photos, right? So we'll start at the top of the profile. So what we believe is that every 10 of anything that is funneled into the Google business profile is a ranking signal to Google to show that you're active and relevant.
Okay.
So if we start with photos, again, we want to populate in an organic way as many photos or videos that pertain to your business. And
Hmm.
again, obviously, depending on the business, that can look very different. But as long as they are in relation or connected to the business, it's appropriate, right? So, and then coming down, we have the reviews. So
Hmm.
every 10 reviews, same idea, ranking signal to Google. And then we also obviously encourage folks to respond to those reviews.
Hmm.
So again, every 10 responses, ranking signal to Google.
Hmm.
Coming down, another one is the address within the profile.
Yeah.
Depending on the business, some folks might not drive there often, right? It might just be the employees. There might be no consumers
Hmm.
physically driving to that address.
Hmm.
But every 10 times somebody populates that address into Google Maps,
Hmm.
also a ranking signal to Google.
What's so interesting is I actually just had a client who they had somebody that was managing their Google profile that they, didn't work out. So they let them go. But that person went in and changed them from the state that they were in to a different state and then locked them out. So they lost about $25,000 worth of business in a very, very, very short time frame. And so making sure that you are looking at your Google profile, that you're making sure that you take controls when you are having a handoff and that you don't give somebody full access, I think is really, really important for you as the admin.
Yeah, well, and that leads me to the next part of the profile
Mhm.
is the telephone number.
Right.
And you'd be surprised, there's calls or meetings that we get on,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden we're like, "Hey, is this the right phone number?" And they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, no, that's not right."
Oh, no.
So, yeah, so they've been operating their business for however long, potentially with the wrong phone number in the profile.
That.
So, and again, that's important for many reasons, but one being the idea that, every 10 times somebody picks up the phone and calls, that's a ranking signal to Google, right? Now,
Right.
the final two things within the profile that most folks will never see from a consumer standpoint, and
Mhm.
also most thing or something that most folks would not think are important because they don't see it, is products and services. So you can
Okay.
actually implement in products and services that associate with the business in the profile and attach fancy images that kind of coincide with those.
Okay.
And again, every 10 of those being a ranking signal. So
Mhm.
something that most folks might not ever see and something that most folks might not think is that important, but it is. And the last thing would be Google Post. Are you familiar with Google Post?
I'm not familiar with Google Post.
Yeah, so we can kind of consider Google Post to be the social media of Google.
Okay.
And Google Post is something to where we can take potentially existing content that you're putting elsewhere and funnel it into Google in the same way and streamline it.
Okay.
And every 10 of those would be a ranking signal to Google.
Mhm.
Or our team can kind of help create new organic posts to be populated once a week, once a month, etc., to at least have some form of a stream of
Yeah.
content being funneled into Google Post.
That's great, especially if somebody has a very visual website that you're able to utilize pictures, or they've done photo shoots of their company. I think something like that is huge.
Yeah, and like we say, like we consider that idea though of what I just explained to
Mhm.
be a complete profile.
Right.
But now, as we call it a complete profile, the process is really never ending though, right? Because it can constantly be improved and new information can be funneled into that. And then the other thing to think about too is that is something that is organic,
Mhm.
and it's not the secondary aspect, which would be the paid search.
Okay. Now, thinking back over all the clients you've worked with and that you've heard stories from your bosses about, what is like your favorite transformational story with a client that maybe didn't have the most stellar of websites or Google profiles, and then what's a good impact story of how that helped their business?
Yeah, no. So there's a guy by the name of Lance Liming, and he is the owner of a company called L&L Plastics. And Lance and I connected back when I first got hired at a local networking group, and for months, I had had politely bantered from across the room, like, please let me help you get this right. You know what I mean? It was very, very dated. The content was old, the aesthetic was old, copy was old, etc. Right? And I know we're talking about the aesthetics there, but once we finally were able to get our hands on it, we were obviously able to give this massive overhaul to the look and feel of the site. But outside of that, I think what's even bigger and what's more important is that now when folks come to his site, it speaks a level of credibility and professionalism that was associated with his business all along, but maybe got lost in translation when folks would come to it previously, just because of how dated the site was, right? Like it was dated to the point to where if folks were to come to it, they potentially might think, oh, like, is he still in business? Right. So it's like now, what we like to say is folks don't know what they're missing or what they're losing by not having a web presence that speaks the true credibility and professionalism of their business.
Yeah. And I know you can't really disclose his numbers or anything like that, but did he see an impact in like the traffic footprint to his website and the increase in calls to his website for his services?
So I don't have the exact, Google Analytics associated with that, right? Or the back end, but there's no doubt that the work that we did in terms of the connection to the Google Business Profile, the website, etc., provided a significant increase in traffic to that site.
That's great.
And call volume, etc. So
outside of contacting you, if our viewers could implement just one actionable tip to help their website or their Google profile, what is one that you could say that would make an immediate difference?
Just try and generate reviews. I mean, like, I think that's the simplest one, right? I mean, I think trying to find ways or encourage ways to have your consumers or your business partners generate meaningful reviews for the business.
Yeah. As a human, I think that a lot of people, one, don't work that into their process, or two, don't want to like overtly ask for it. And I think the biggest thing is if you can set up a system where you have an email saying, we'd just like to touch base and make sure that everything's good with wrapping up your project. And if we did a good job for you, if you don't mind leaving a 5-star review, that would be great. And you kind of plant the 5-star review as like, that's what I'm hoping for. But obviously, if I did something different, I want to know so that I could fix it for the next person. And just making it a part of your process to ask for it is really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it seems to be the easiest one, right? But potentially that's also the one that's the hardest for people to kind of grasp and and generate. So, but yeah, I would say reviews is the easiest thing for folks to do.
Okay. If someone is considering doing a website rebuild, what are some of the questions they should ask a potential partner before making a decision?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that because we haven't been able to touch on it yet. And I think this is what separates us from all of our non-existent competitors, right? So we do support very differently than most. So what that means is this, right? So we won't just build a brand new presence or rescue a presence, launch it, and then leave it alone.
Right.
That's actually where our relationship begins.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is we have 2 fixed monthly support options to where our clients can figure out which option is most appropriate for them, right?
Yeah.
So what that means is this. We have our bottom, which is our $199, which is our landscaping.
Yeah.
$199 a month covers a couple of things. So that covers security, hosting, backups, and then we train their team to be able to support the website and Google Business Profile themselves.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if there's any emergencies for any reason, they could email our team and we would tackle those for them, no problem. But again, the idea is for $199 a month, they have peace of mind when it comes to security, hosting, backups, and then they have a well-trained team to kind of handle that web presence support themselves.
Okay.
Then for $499 a month, that's our property management. Essentially, they get the hosting, the security, the backups, and then our team would be responsible for making sure that all the updates, changes, removals, etc., are implemented into the website and the Google Business Profile. And I think what's nice about that option is that a lot of businesses don't want to have to think about this stuff.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of other hats and fires to put out. They're not interested in trying to figure out adding one more thing to their plate. If they could delegate it, why not?
Exactly. And to that point, our team is truly built on speed and efficiency. And in 2024, and now this is on the basis of having about 400 clients and about 500 websites that we support ongoing on a monthly basis. 88% of our daily tickets are closed in 24 hours, and not a single ticket goes longer than 7 days.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had one ticket that was closed in 90 seconds. So, and all of us are here in the States. Yeah, all of us are here in the States. We're all W-2 employees. There's nobody offshore. So, the customer or the prospect knows that who they're dealing with will be local, and they'll be able to pick up the phone. So again, I think that's very big and it's very important in a time where getting a hold of vendors can be extremely challenging. So yeah, so we try to, be the opposite of that idea, and we try to almost be over responsive. We almost make it a game.
It's in a world of technology, I think that people are a little overwhelmed with the amount of technology coming at them, and personal touch means everything.
Yeah. So we're just a responsive team. But no, I mean, to kind of circle back around to the main question that you asked is like, what should people be asking? I think it comes down to the idea of the main question, whether it's a prospect for us or a prospect is going to another company like us. I encourage that prospect to ask the vendor or the potential vendor tactically what they're going to do for them.
Yeah.
So like they should be able to end that meeting and be able to go tell their wife, their husband, their sister, their daughter, any form of family member, colleague, whatever, exactly what that vendor is going to do for them. And there should be no confusion. So, and I think that's our mission too. With our clients is we want them to where somebody's like, hey, what is AI software doing for you guys?
Right.
We want them to be confident in their ability to actually communicate what it is that we're doing for them. So that would be my main thing.
I think that's important because I think a lot of folks don't even know the questions to ask. So this is where I would suggest AI like ChatGPT or Claude to talk to somebody like you on, what are the 5 top questions that I should ask as I'm talking to this particular vendor? Because then that you don't know the questions that you're supposed to ask because that's not your job. You need to know an inch deep, mile wide, and then find somebody that can take you that has an inch wide, mile deep of knowledge. And I think that's important.
Yeah, well, I think too, like don't make it over technical, right? Because I think like when I described in the beginning of the types of folks that we're talking to, they're not technical folks.
No.
So we need to be able to speak in a
Review.
language that makes sense to them.
Yeah. References, reviews, what are the languages? How do your customers interact with you? Those are the important things. And everything else comes with, as you collaborate and as you're a good partner with them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, spot on.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing a little bit about AI software. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.
Have a lovely day, all.